Hello and welcome to another Hello America's What's Cooking here on LinkedIn Live. You can find us every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. My name is Xenia Pola. I'm the Regional Director for ECA North America. And thank you so much for joining us every week. We always have exciting topics, exciting guests. Please make sure to give a shout out in the comments bar. And if you have any questions for our guests, please feel free to do so. I am joined today by our lovely CEO at Morressier, Sami, and I wasn't going to do it, but I am going to try.
Very good.
Benchekroun.
Perfect.
And hello and welcome, Sami.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And I need to make that joke. Good morning, America, right? Although it's not really good morning.
As I mentioned, you were the first one to make that
Very
joke.
Good.
So in order for our audience to hear a little bit more about you, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, how the company started? Because you have quite a lovely story to share, and it goes back to your parents still, right?
Oh, yeah. Long story. I'll try to make it very, very short here. But it's essentially, so first of all, thank you for having me again. This is lovely. Looking forward to chatting with you the next half an hour. So I am Sami, born and raised in Berlin, Germany, and I just moved to Washington, D.C. That's where I am currently. So kind of a new American, if you will, and enjoying the lovely summer for every Washingtonian. It's warm, but I very much enjoy it. I'm a co-founder and CEO at Morressier, a company that was founded in Berlin, and we are building a platform, a fully integrated platform for early stage research. Early stage research is for us basically everything that comes out of a conference, which is conference abstracts, posters, presentations, the dialogue. We see this as sort of the root of the scholarly discourse. And the story that you mentioned, why we have created the company, is that I worked very early on as a consultant for mainly academic and scientific conferences around the world. And I did that because both of my parents, they studied medicine in Poland, right? So they met in Poland. My father comes from Morocco, my mother comes from Poland, so sort of a mixture of many cultures right there. And they went to a lot of scientific conferences themselves, and they had sort of that challenge on saying, how can I, as someone that studies in Poland, get access to knowledge, right? How can I get access to content that is shared, for example, at a conference in the United States, without having the budget to actually fly, from anywhere in the world, and that concept of content accessibility was something that struck me very, very early on, and that was the initial sort of motivation for us to build Morressier.
Excellent. And before we go to our first question, there is a quick shout out from Will saying it's hot and humid in DC. So welcome to DC, Sami.
That's right.
You've already touched on my very first question. We all know, and you mentioned it now, content is king. Events are the ones which are sparking that innovation. That's why we are really advocating for the value of business events. So how are you and Morressier, and how is your platform helping extend that content and the life cycle of that content?
Yeah, no, very, very good question. So, and I like the fact that you're saying content is king. It was one very, very prominent sort of slogan that we've also used very, very early on. So let me maybe start at the very, very beginning, right? When we started the company, one of the things that we felt is something that we can optimize and work on, is that entire notion of poster presentations, right? So you have this you have these big scientific conferences where you have massive amounts of posters in those large conference halls, where people come from around the world and present in front of the poster, right? These typical poster sessions, which is really a lovely format to say, well, I want to present a preliminary result. I want to exchange with my colleagues on that conference around something. But the big challenge that we always saw there is that single poster was, unfortunately, after the 3-4 day of a typical event, was gone, right? You couldn't really get access to it. It maybe is on some wall of a university or a lab, but you can't really access it. And initially we thought that this is just on one specific conference, but we found out this is an international thing. And then we said, well, what's with the presentation? Is the presentation then online? Can we get access to it? And unfortunately, we saw that there is still a very small amount of content that people consume on a conference, accessible after the conference for a long amount of time. And what we did then is to say, well, there must be a reason for that, right? Why isn't that actually happening? And we've done a lot of research with participants, either authors or researchers themselves, or people from the industry who are exhibiting, and we're asking, well, wouldn't that be incredibly valuable if you could get access to content also after and before the conference even? And they all said to a large degree that this is actually something that they were looking for forever already, right? So there seemed to be a huge a huge gap there, and Morsier built exactly that, right? We supported societies, conference organizers, to organize content that would come in by authors, by speakers, by the industry. We would support in creating the entire program all on one platform. And after the conference, we would support them in still giving access to everyone else. So suddenly, a much broader array of people could get access and see what happened there. And people always ask me, well, doesn't that take away the value of an in-person meeting? And I say, no, absolutely not, right? We love in-person events. That's something that I do believe in the power of meeting together, because there's something magical that comes out. But one of the conferences that I spoken at had the title, Take Away the Content Pressure from the Conferences in order to focus on the experience on site, right? So why do we sit all in front of massive keynote halls? Why do we sit, in typical university style, right? You listen for hours and hours to a keynote speaker. You could do that from the comfort of your sofa or after the conference. Let's focus on bringing people together on the conference itself, and let's put the content online and have the conversation online. Sorry, this was a massive answer for your question, but
it is a massive concept, and it was a complex question to begin with. And I have quite a few follow-up questions. So also for our audience, please feel free to ask any questions. I do want to say hello to my dear friend Dalia, who's giving a shout out to both Sami and I, as well as welcoming Deborah and sending greetings from Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us today, Deborah, and great to see Morsier involved so much in the association community. And we have another hello from Donna. Thanks for the opportunity to meet Morsier. Thank you, Donna, for joining us, because what you are providing is now really that opportunity for people to have more meaningful connection, using technology to actually extending that connection created during an event and connecting in a more meaningful way. Is there also a model in there for all of our association listening? How can they repurpose this even better and monetize on it, because we all are looking at monetization as one of the key elements, right?
100%. And there's many things that we see our clients and partners are doing. So let me maybe circle back here, and really talk about sort of the change that we have seen throughout the pandemic, right? What we've seen is that there is obviously that huge shift to virtual, and what now sort of suddenly happened is that all those learnings that we have had during COVID, they now transcend into the day-to-day business of societies and associations. And I think that observing what their thinking is absolutely amazing. And one of the big learnings here, that I observe in more and more societies and associations that were pre-pandemic, sort of these two very distinct departments, which you had the conference department, and then you had in scholarly societies the publishing department, or the business part. Unfortunately, conference and the rest of them were very much separate from one another, right? And just because we have a lot of experience with scientific societies, we always looked at it as two parts, right? You had the event department and you have the publishing department. Now, after the pandemic, we saw a lot of these now move together and say, there is value on thinking about sort of the entire story of a member with one head on, right? Saying, well, the member is not only going to a conference or is not only member for, but they actually run through an entire story, right? And that story needs to be told on all different touch points. So why don't we look at all the touch points in one systematic way, and don't create several different experiences, right? That used to be the case. And just to give an example, a member at a society had the experience of a publishing walkthrough, which could be completely different than the experience they had on a conference, and yet a completely different experience on a different part of the society world. And I think what we've seen during COVID is that all those activities merge together. And the reason I'm mentioning that, and now I'm going to come to your question, is that those efficiency gains and those gains on connecting those pieces together give, first of all, a much more holistic picture on activities within the society, give a much more holistic picture around members, around authors, around academics, and inform much better around future business models. And I'm just going to talk about three business models that we see a lot. One being connecting early stage research that you have on conferences with the scholarly output, and maybe even say identifying within conferences potential publications for the publication business that should be, again, the same story. That is magic, right? We see a lot of publication businesses that are now looking into their conference teams and say, hey, you have a wealth of information there. Why don't we use that? Why don't we sort of combine our stories? And our platform really goes into that point and says, well, we can help you identify interesting topics on the conference that then you can use for the publishing part of your business, right? So that is one topic that we emphasize, and we see tremendous success there. The second element is you have suddenly that idea of sponsors and exhibitors who do not want again several experiences, right? They also want to have sort of a seamless experience across the touch points. One being the conference world, one being the post-conference world, one being, again, the pre-conference world, right? So the fact that our platform runs through all these periods in time, we start way before the conference, we support during the conference, and we are there also long after the conference, we can tell a nice, beautiful stories. And the exhibitors and sponsors benefit a lot from putting an ad before the conference, a very targeted ad, or having a sponsored session and on the conference. So it is a much nicer story. So we see great success there. And in terms of the third element is you have suddenly that, and that's something that a lot of our clients do too, a new array of content output. You have videos, you have great data and documents that people are interested in. So we have a couple of our clients who now also benefit from these types of content output and sell access to certain areas of exciting output. And our platform supports that too. So in a nutshell, the three elements that we very much work on is that connection from early stage research shared on conference and the publishing team. We work on that exhibitor and sponsorship part. And the third bucket is everything around giving access to certain new type of content outlet. For example, video, because that's quite a powerful format.
Thank you so much. And you're touching on so many important parts of how our events need to be much more intentional and have some tangible outcomes and outputs. And definitely this is something Mauritius is offering. And thank you, Janice, for joining us. I hope that Sami has been able to share a little bit more about Mauritius, that you've learned some more. There is also a hello from your fellow Mauritian, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sentil. Our ICA CEO is also joining us today. Wherever you are in the world, I believe you are traveling again somewhere. And also a hello from Anton, and great to hear what Mauritius is offering to the association and events industry. You've already touched on the different business models. What I want from you is, if you do have any example through that whole journey where thanks to your solution, do you know any example that there was a huge breakthrough because you have enabled the first spark to come to fruition?
Yeah. So, as a matter of fact, many and also recent clients that we onboarded throughout the year, they benefited a lot from that. And not to put too much of the selling head on here, but just very, let's say, nuanced speaking, the platform that we have built, we have intentionally built it with a very clear technology and software mindset, right? So we are all technology and product people. We love technology, we love product, and we love to partner with our clients to bring them also closer to the technology. So one thing that I'm always telling to all our clients is that in that partnership, understanding the needs of certain clients and certain partners, we can see how we can solve that, right? And the reason I'm saying that is, very early on in the company's history, we always had that dilemma of people coming to us and saying, I want that feature, or I want that capability, or I want that or that or that. And I said, well, wait a second, I understand where that comes from, but let's solve your problem and then translate it into the product. So that's the mentality that we have. To answer very precisely your question, sorry that I have such a pre introduction before I answer your questions, but now the answer to your question. So I'm just looking into good examples. I think one beautiful example is our relationship with the Institute of Physics in the UK. So we have a massive partnership with the Institute of Physics, where we basically looked into business model one, right, where we basically supported to organize their entire conference proceedings and their entire conference proceedings workflow in a much smoother way, so that we see already now an increased efficiency gains in terms of processing, in terms of reviewing the content, in terms of interacting with all the different stakeholders, be it reviewers, be it editors, be it also the conference organizers. All of them are now much closer connected, and the efficiency that they have is quite significant. So I'm quite happy to say that is a very good example right there. And then there's many others. We are working with the American Physics Society, who uses our entire virtual conference portfolio, who also had now the opportunity to put all the content on one single platform, right? Where all the content from all their smaller events come together and are on one single platform, which is the Mauricie platform in that case. Or our relationship with the American Chemical Society, which is, by the way, right around the corner, who also created sort of that platform where all conference output would be accessible of all years, right? So we've uploaded loads of content on a single, and I can continue, with the list. But there's many different cases where we support our clients on all different types of models.
And it is a great topic. Thank you, Annie, for thinking the same as we do, because we are continuing this conversation. This was just a snapshot, and Sami will actually do a really in-depth session at the ECA conference in Krakow in Poland, 6 to 9 November. Sami, do you want to give a little bit of a spiel on your session there?
Well, so first of all, you all got to come. So I'm not going to tell too much beforehand, right? And I'm quite excited that it's in Poland, as being half Polish. I'm really excited about that. But generally speaking, just maybe a little bit of a hint to that is my focus of the session will be exactly that topic of how can we integrate the world of conferences and the world of publishing with business model glasses on. So I really want to try to develop, in the session, and explain in the session more around what kind of growth opportunities, what kind of efficiency opportunities we have, and really bring a huge bag of examples and walk all the planners, maybe also with their colleagues from the publishing team, through best practices and through things that we saw work very well.
Perfect. And so for everybody, a shout out and call, come and join us in Krakow. But in the meantime, you are more than welcome to check out the Mauricie website at mauricie.com. Or connect with Sami on LinkedIn. I'm sure he will be
Absolutely.
more than happy to share with you some of his insights. And I'm not letting you go before we touch on my last questions, because we are on Hello America's What's Cooking. What are your favorite foods, restaurants, recipes? Any tips?
Yeah. All right. So I hope that everybody brought at least an hour, because the list is very long for all the insights. But I'm this time going to focus on as a new Washingtonian. I have two restaurant tips that I happen to enjoy in the last weeks. One is right around where I live is a place called Comet. COMET on Connecticut Avenue. It's a very casual location where you can get great pizza and play ping pong. It's a really nice place. It's a neighborhood store or neighborhood restaurant. And the other one is Cranes DC, which I was last. I don't know if I can make that advertising, but I just enjoyed being there. Cranes is sort of that Spanish-Japanese fusion, and I found that combination quite incredible. So I love that as well. And maybe just one more tip, because I enjoyed it with my kids together just lately. As a half Moroccan, I love dates, right? Dates are wonderful. So dates and a glass of milk. Just try the combination. One date and a sip of milk. Beautiful. My son, who is 4 years old, and my daughter 6 years old, they enjoy that a lot, and it's absolutely wonderful. So I can just recommend to try dates and milk.
Excellent. I might have to try that. And who knows, maybe I'm going to sleep much better. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Brian, for joining us as well. And thank you for the kind words that you enjoyed our conversation. This is it from us for today. If you do want to join me as a guest, please feel free to email me at xenia.p@ecoworld.org. And the final thing is announcing my guest for next week on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, when I will be welcoming Evan Babbins talking about event design and event tech. So hope
Very
you
good.
will all be joining us then. Thank you so much, Sami, for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.